to info@unitedcitiespro.com. That's info@unitedcitiespro.com.
The Army National Guard plays a vital role in your community. We're on the front lines supporting essential personnel, first responders, law enforcement, and medical professionals, delivering food, supplies, and medicine, keeping communities safe, making a difference. During emergencies, we're always ready, always there. Learn more about part-time service in the Army National Guard at nationalguard.com.
Sponsored by the Florida Army National Guard. Aired by the Florida Association of Broadcasters and this station.
From the heart of Central Florida, you are listening to the most electrifying show in media. A Neighbor's Choice. And I'm your neighbor, David Gornoski, here to challenge the toxic groupthink of the old corporate media, here to pave a new positive direction of conversation, a direction that's guided by the principles of personhood, not collectivism. We don't believe that it's ever appropriate to sacrifice one for the greater good of the many, because that's a false lie. That's a false myth from long ago that has been completely discredited the more we become aware of who we are as people and become aware of the natural world around us and how it works. So that's what this program's about. This is a program that's on a mission to get things done. And you always know to tune in weekdays 4 to 6 here on WHBO 1040 AM and on News Radio Orlando. You always be sure to join us there as well. And then on YouTube and Facebook for our friends watching the video stream, we welcome you as well. And we've got a lot to talk about because there's a lot of things in the news as it pertains to conflicting narratives about how we should process what's going on in the world today. And I will do my best to not fixate on the negativity that the media always wants to keep us fighting and blaming each other, because that's what politics is for. Politics is a deadly blame game. And unfortunately, monopoly, big government is a deadly blame game. All they do is try to mitigate the risk of being blamed themselves and to find ways to convince the public through marketing and persuasion and PR techniques that their enemies are to blame and that they are the saviors. That's the only thing about politics you'll ever get. It's narcissists who win popularity contests ruling over unchecked bureaucracies that never have skin in the game, that never have their budget cut, that never get fired when they do terrible jobs. And one of the things that they've done a terrible job at is the idea that we could rely on the federal bureaucracy and its state little minions to tell us what to eat. You know, that food pyramid that you always saw, where they told you to eat 7 to 11 grains of grains every day, bagels and all that nasty stuff. They convinced generations to do that. They convinced grandmas to get off of butter, good old-fashioned fresh butter, and get on margarine, because this industrial waste product that margarine was allegedly healthier for you. And this was all at the design of dumb pseudoscience quackery pushed on us by single-payer nutritional science. And so right now, with all the folks that are concerned about the fatalities with this new pandemic virus, if you notice, all the folks who are most at risk of having serious issues with this virus are people who took the advice of single-payer nutrition. They ate tons of grains. They ate tons of vegetable oils and seed oils, things that are not natural for the body to process. Vegetable oils are loaded with fats that are very, very unstable for your cellular walls, that make them easily penetrated by bad stuff like diseases. And so all the folks right now who stand to be the most at risk are the elderly, who have the classic diseases that we mistakenly associate as inevitable with age, things like diabetes and hypertension and heart disease, cancer, all those things that are done because primarily we've been sold a lot of pseudoscience, quackery nonsense from the single-payer nutritional science, that is food pyramid bogus information. So people are scarfing up carbohydrates, and then they say, oh, yeah, well, technically, yeah, regular carbs are bad, but you just need to eat loads and loads of whole grains. And then they tell you to eat loads and loads of kale, even though kale has got all kinds of things that are toxic that bind up nutrients in your body, like oxalates. You got all kinds of phytotoxins in plants because we were not meant to eat primarily plants as our main staple of eating. We were meant to eat meat as our primary fuel. And that's the way our genetics and our DNA was constructed, was on the consumption of meat, fresh meat, not hot dogs and beef jerky. Rest in peace, Macho Man Randy Savage, with his line about, Slim Jims. This is no offense, but that's not where you get your best nutrition. You get your best nutrition through fresh, whole foods, nose to tail eating. And if you can handle it, eat some fish, enjoy your life, get some sunshine, get some fresh air. You don't hear that ever talked about on these little cartoon press conferences with the so-called experts that have a really nice, convenient relationships with giant multinational corporations. But that's what we're dealing with on this news cycle. So joining me is we're going to take another spin for a moment to give a perspective that we're not seeing perhaps as much in our own American media, which is other countries are not all doing the whole total lockdown approach like a lot of countries are. So there are countries like Sweden. And it's surprising because when I think of Sweden, I think of a country that kind of has a high priority on state power. But it's sometimes not always the case with everything they do. But when I saw that Sweden was taking a different approach where they weren't going to have such heavy-handed lockdown, they were going to let this thing develop herd immunity, where the population can get to close to 80% having the immunity and then or having the virus and recovering, and then locking the virus out of the herd from being able to harm those who are most at risk. That approach has been demonized in the media. The UK was going to do it, and then they backed off like they do about a lot of stuff. But nevertheless, Sweden persists. It's not completely laissez-faire the way they're doing it, but they've persisted in doing it in a way that is completely different from America. So I thought it would be great to have our Swedish friend Olof, who is in Central Florida, come on the program, and as a Swede, tell us what's going on in Sweden. How you doing, Olof?
Good. Hi, David. Great to be with you. There's very different to how they're doing things in Sweden right now. And I think you mentioned, there's a lot of state power that is how the country is driven. But many times it's on a local county level. So, for instance, when we look at the healthcare system, it's run on at the county level as opposed to the national level, which is more manageable in that way, even though it's not ideal, obviously, but it's better than this giant national top-down central approach for everything. And in this case too, it's nice to see that there's some dissenter, so that there is a control group out there that's doing things a little differently, and of course the media hates it. The political class hates it. The global elites hates it. So that's what makes it extra interesting to follow, I think.
Well, as politically correct as Sweden tends to be, how come they've taken this unique approach? And tell us a little bit about what the Swedish approach is to this pandemic.
Sure. Yeah. No, it's unique in the way that they're not using a lot of coercion. Most of the stuff that comes out of the health departments are in terms of recommendations of what people should be doing, and they're not locking down everything, and they're not putting their economy on hold, and they're not disrupting this whole lattice work of cooperation between enterprise. So what they're doing is the only restrictions that I've seen so far right now is that so large gatherings started. They said you can't be more than 500 people, and and then it went down. You can't have gathering more than 50. But there are a bunch of exceptions to this too. So this doesn't apply to like schools or different libraries and other. There's a lot of exceptions to it. So they're not primarily using coercion. They're not sending out the police to arrest people. They're merely making certain recommendations. Say, hey, you shouldn't stand crowded, so many people at once. But be careful and don't go and visit the elderly and so forth. And right now, there's some restrictions to that too. You can't visit the elderly. So the restrictions that are officially in place are you can't visit the elderly more in the nursing homes. The restaurants need to have table service and the bars as well, so you can't stand crowded in the bar. But they're all open.
So the schools are open.
Universities. Yeah, schools are open. High schools and universities went online.
What about churches?
For the rest of the school year, but
what's left of them? What's left of them? Whatever churches are left in Sweden, are they open?
Right, the Church of Sweden, yeah, but the free churches too. We have a bunch of like free evangelical churches as well. As far as I know, they're open. Kindergartens, preschools, and so forth are open. And the reasoning there also is, if you were to close down all the preschools and kindergartens and primary schools in Sweden, even middle schools to a certain extent, you would lose 20%. It was estimated you would lose 20% of the healthcare workforce. And for Sweden, that would be a death blow to Swedish healthcare. If 20% of nurses and doctors can't go to work now to take care of these patients because they need to stay home with their children, that's going to be a big problem. So they're keeping them open, and life goes on fairly normal, I think.
Well, let's continue with, we're talking about Sweden and what they're doing. It's a different approach. They're not taking the same heavy-handed approach as other countries are, like China and America, little mimetic doubles that they are. So we're going to continue with Olof in just a moment. Someone who has grown up in Sweden can tell us a little bit about what they're doing. Maybe we can learn some freedom ideas from the Swedes. How about that? That's interesting.
Hi, I'm Dr. Michael Lang, board-certified optometric physician and certified nutritional specialist, host of popular talk show Ask the Doctor. I've researched and developed an amazing new omega-3 product that you'll see incredible results with. It's called Fortify Super Omega-3 Max. I had one of the top Norwegian omega-3 research teams in conjunction with myself and Fortify Vitamins aid in the development of this advanced omega-3. This product is the most potent and purest triglyceride form omega-3 in the United States today. Omega-3 is great for all aspects of your health and well-being, especially in this unprecedented, challenging time. I am giving a 25% discount with promo code RADIO during this viral pandemic. Go to my website, fortify.com. That's FORTIFEYE. Remember the EYE in Fortify. That's fortify.com. Enter the promo code RADIO to receive the 25% discount.
Windshields are all about safety, and so is Auto Glass America, especially now during the COVID-19 pandemic and social distancing. If your windshield is chipped or cracked and you have qualifying insurance, we'll install a premium quality replacement with a lifetime warranty at no cost to you. As always, we'll come to you with free mobile service while maintaining social distancing, plus you'll get up to $150 cash back for your windshield. Keep your family safe. Call us today, 813-96-GLASS. That's 813-96-GLASS.
Sometimes a family needs a little help to deal with life stresses. You can contribute to happy, healthy childhoods with a few simple steps. Notice families under stress. Offer a helping hand. Give your time. Talk about healthy child development. Connect a family with resources. Contributing to a great childhood can be as easy as being a good neighbor. For more, preventchildabusefl.org. This message is sponsored by the Ounce of Prevention Fund of Florida, the Florida Association of Broadcasters, and this radio station.
And now, R&R Air Solutions,
60 seconds.
a wise choice all season long, is reminding motorists to keep an eye out for kids and never text and drive. R&R Air Solutions is the name we trust for sales, installations, repairs, and more. Look to R&R Air Solutions and stay cool all year. Call 813-553-3333. That's 813-553-3333. And make sure to like them on Facebook. That's R&R Air Solutions, going the extra mile for our community and looking forward to serving you.
The following message is sponsored by the Florida Department of Elder Affairs, the Florida Association of Broadcasters, and this radio station.
Sarah is 64 and loves to garden. Recently, her health insurance ran out, leaving her worried about more than just weeds. She called the Elder Helpline and spoke with a volunteer Shine counselor about her options. There, she received free, unbiased counseling on health insurance for those on Medicare. For more information or to volunteer, call 1-800-963-5337 or go to floridashine.org.
We are soaring high across Central Florida in the beautiful land of the sunshine here on A Neighbor's Choice. I'm David Gornoski, your host, and there's so much that we can do together if we just turn off the negative television. Just turn it off. Use the newspapers you might still have a subscription for pet purposes. We know what that looks like, right? Puppies, bird cages. There's a lot of uses for those papers as your subscription runs out. Heard just today Los Angeles Times plummeting. Their ad revenues plummeting. I'm sure they'll want a bailout. They certainly love worshiping government. I'm sure, Mr. Government, please give us a handout so we can keep serving you. Yeah, that little Pravda stuff like that needs to go bye-bye. So in the meantime, we're talking with Olof, a person who lived in the wild lands of Sweden for many years, and now he resides here in Florida with us. And we're analyzing what he has seen, and he's put some statistics together we can look at or talk about what Sweden's doing. They're really embarrassing the land of the free over here by being more hands-off. And there's a lot of epidemiologists, by the way. I've talked about Professor Witowski of the Rockefeller University. He's retired now there, but he's one of the top guys, been over 35 years of experience studying epidemics, who says that our social distancing mandates through coercion, this top-down state-managed approach that we're doing across America to various levels of severity, will probably actually end up causing more elderly folks to die potentially. Maybe not in the short term, but in the long term when the waves come back over and over again. Meanwhile, there's a lot of folks that just say we just need to wait for Bill Gates' instructions. Like, what did this guy ever do? I mean, yeah, he stole some ideas that created Microsoft, right? That's what I've heard. So he was born with a silver foot in his mouth. So this is a guy who is not really, how is he supposed to be some kind of God-anointed expert, except for the fact that he parrots the same herd mentality talking points as the favored bureaucracies and the favored multinational corporations like to talk about. They love top-down solutions. They love it when they can go, boo, and you all scurry around. Okay, tell me what to do. That's not what made America what America is, or what it was at its best. What made America great is our space for people who are different, for people who are contrarian, for people like Galileo who say, no, I disagree with you and your little coercive monopolies. They have nothing to do with reality. That's what made America beautiful. At its best, it's when we allow for space for the minority voice, for the minority thinker, for the scientist, for the philosopher, for the healer. That's where they have to have space, right? But when you have these top-down solutions like the Tampa mayor, they want to, mandate masks must be worn at all times. Now they want to have curfew, night. You got to go night at 9 o'clock. You got to be tucked in. If they don't see you tucked in, what are they going to do? They're going to set up little surveillance to make sure, see in your window, are you tucked in at 9 o'clock? Uh-oh, you went to go get milk in the fridge? Uh-oh, we're going to report you. Is that how stupid we want to be? Come on. They're doing this based on a theory that has not a very foundational, strong place. right? A lot of people you'll hear on media, oh yeah, just keep flattening the curve, flattening the curve, like parrots, right? Because they're scared, so they just want to trust whatever they hear on TV. But they don't realize that that's just a theory. That's not a confirmed way of dealing with this. It's just a theory that this is the way you reduce deaths. Whereas Professor Witowski, the epidemiologist, you can look him up, Newt Witowski from Rockefeller University, Google it or Bing it or DuckDuckGo it. You can look him up right now and watch the other case that many, many other people around the world share, the experts on that side that say, no, actually, it's possible that less people will die if we allow the herd immunity to happen faster by not shutting down schools and everything else for the healthy folks and just using a little bit of discretion to keep the elderly and the sickly away from this, like we would do any time with common sense. But we know that, meanwhile, we know that corn syrup is bad for you. We know that wheat and eating massive amount of bread is bad for you and bad for your immune system. So how come the government doesn't tell you to stop eating that, right? They tell you to put on a mask, but they don't tell you to stop eating grains so that you won't be a sitting duck for a virus to send your body into a immunity overload response? Why can't they tell you that? Why can't media folks tell you that? Are they scared? Are their minds owned by groupthink? I don't know. But luckily, we have someone giving us a perspective today about what Sweden's doing, which is a little bit more hands-off. And that's embarrassing that America looks closer to China than it does, and Sweden looks more like America on this issue so far. Olof, how you doing?
Great. Yeah, it's a little bit strange. I posted on Facebook the other day. I said that it's a strange feeling when you see Sweden defend freedom more than America, and it kind of is to this day and age. But yeah, no, I also read articles from Knut Witowski and watched interviews with him, and it makes a lot of sense. You need to achieve herd immunity, and there are two ways you can achieve herd immunity. Either you have a vaccine and you vaccinate most of the people, and then you have herd immunity. If you don't have a vaccine, you need to expose enough people so that they develop antibodies, right? This makes sense. Everybody can follow this, right? And then with a certain percentage, whether it's 60 or 80, depending on what virus it is, then you'll have herd immunity. And that, I think, is what Sweden is doing right now. They are trying to achieve herd immunity while also not trying to overwhelm their already sort of stressed healthcare system, which is under stress in normal times. And, in these times, it could be under even more stress. So they are trying to slowly, get more the rate of exposure to the virus to follow a certain pattern, so that you can achieve this. And you talked about flattening the curve. Well, we can see already now that the curve is somewhat flattening. Now, day-to-day changes a little bit, and so you never know. Tomorrow could look different, but as of now, it looks pretty good.
So they're not so let's pause there for a second. So they're not using the big strong arm tactics, and they could be flattening the curve through the natural herd immunity process.
Exactly, and they stopped. The interesting thing also, they stopped testing most people in mid-March. They only tested people who have like severe symptoms, or people who work in healthcare and so forth. And so there are obviously a lot of people walking around having the virus who don't even notice it. It's just a minor cold, or they don't have any symptoms whatsoever. There was an interesting example of that is in Linköping. It's a town in Sweden. They have a hospital there, and they had a few COVID patients in that hospital, and they decided to test everybody who worked in a department where those COVID patients were. There were about 50 people who worked at the hospital who were tested, and it turned out that 25 of them had a coronavirus, and many of them didn't even know it. So that's what we're talking about here. So they had the virus, and hopefully they had developed antibodies and are immune to the virus now. And so you want to have as many of those as possible so you can protect the elderly and the vulnerable by providing this, what is called herd immunity. So, yeah, that's what we're seeing, and the curve is flattening naturally.
What about what's really going on in America, which is fattening the curve? We're fattening the curves of every American by getting them cloistered up in their houses with no sunshine, with frozen pizzas and Mountain Dew and sugary corn syrup laden Gatorade. And this is what they're trying to do to help solve us from having need of ventilators. Come on now. Where's the energy alive in people? Where's the energy? Where's their human vitality? We don't want to fatten the curve anymore in America. That's what's causing all the fatalities.
Yeah, no, it's pretty sad. And I think, there a lot of time, I'm not even sure how much this is about the virus anymore. Now it's purely to show, that they are on a power trip or something. They try to push and see how much they can get away with. I mean, come on, they're arresting a dad playing catch with his daughter in a park in, I think it was Colorado, and they handcuffed him and dragged him away. This is ridiculous. And I don't know if you saw this video of a man in Philadelphia who was dragged off the bus by police because he didn't wear a mask. Remember when the CDC told us that we shouldn't wear a mask, that was ineffective and we shouldn't be wearing a mask? I mean, who can trust these clowns anymore? It's ridiculous.
Well, luckily we have Olof from Sweden here to sort it all out with us, live on A Neighbor's Choice. What a shame, folks. Land of the free, home of the braves. We got to look to Sweden and their ABBA music to figure out how to do things with a little bit more common sense. Let's have less herd mentality and more herd immunity. We'll continue in just a moment.
Dr. Jim DiRispino from Center for Men's Health today in Frank's garage. Doc, I was talking to a buddy of mine, telling him about my spring break plans, and he's like, where do you get the energy to do all this stuff? I said, testosterone replacement from C4MH.com. And then he asked me what testosterone has to do with energy.
Most people are aware of the effects of testosterone has on strength and sex drive, but for 99% of our patients, energy is the main focus.
I became a patient because I didn't want to lose muscle mass.
And there is hard data that testosterone improves mood, concentration, and memory.
So Center for Men's Health isn't just treating testosterone deficiency, it's treating the quality of your life.
Let me make this simple. Your body is a machine, and that machine was designed to run with a perfect testosterone level. But if you want to see how good your machine can perform, go to C4MH.com and spend the $45. You'll get over $400 of lab tests and a 30-minute physician consultation.
It's fast, easy, and convenient with locations all up and down the West Florida coast. Go to C4MH.com.
My name is Roz.
60
Most
seconds.
people know me as a spokesperson for 1-800-ASK-GARY. The driver made a left turn onto ongoing traffic, and I hit her. And once I got out of my vehicle and I was able to stand up, then I started feeling pain elsewhere. I had to think. Call 1-800-ASK-GARY. They were on the ball, helping me find legal and medical help. They have thousands of other people, but they make you feel like you're their top priority. I made the call. I now tell other people to make.
Non-attorney spokesperson.
It's been called shell shock, war neurosis, and battle fatigue. Today, we call it post-traumatic stress disorder, and it affects 1 out of every 5 warriors returning from battle in Iraq and Afghanistan. The Wounded Warrior Project offers comfort and support for warriors with PTSD and all other scars of war, whether those scars are visible or hidden. Find out how to help, because for warriors, the greatest casualty is being forgotten. Please visit woundedwarriorproject.org.
Security without liberty is called prison. That's a banner in Michigan as folks protest around the country the draconian, narcissistic, pitiful little attempts by a lot of little petty tyrants in local and state regions who want to flex their little muscles and say, oh, looky, goody, goody. I get to use people's fear for my benefit. Ooh, those are the kind of people we see as villains in Batman movies, right? But somehow those are the guys that we end up electing because we're not paying attention, folks. When we turn on the dumb news media, the TV party does our thinking for us. So turn them off. You know, they've got 2 seconds of content, and then what? 99% of the CBS program is all drug pharmaceutical ads, you know, trying to keep you basically perpetually like in a zombie state of drugs riddled with side effects. And we want to listen to these people to tell us what to think? Come on. This is nonsense. And yet people hang their every word on this notion of what does the Dr. Fauci going to tell us today? You know, and it's so dumb because we understand that no person can figure out a top-down solution that can benefit everyone. And again, remember that government and its bureaucratic friends, their number one job is to create the appearance of being responsible for the successes that people have and to mitigate at all costs any risk of being blamed for the problems. And so when you have politics as it will always be, then that's not going to be the solution or the tool to deal with health crises. Because think about it. If you have to have a fixation on the appearances of things like politicians do, then you're never going to get the actual reality of things taken care of. So keeping up with appearances is not the way to solve people's health problems or their financial problems. But so happy are the socialists and little corporatists, little fascists around the country who are just licking their chops saying, oh, this is wonderful. This is a wonderful opportunity for us to show our muscles and put people in night, curfew, 9 o'clock, curfew, 8 o'clock, right? What are they going to do next? Now they're going to want us, you know, some people have said, oh, you're going to have papers. Show your papers to get through to show that you have been immunized or whatever, or have your immunity from this virus. When we don't even know if that virus comes back with second attacks against the body. So, Olof, I wanted to ask you, you're from Sweden. What do you think about, what's the story going on with the chief epidemiologist in Sweden? Are they being well received?
Yeah.
What's going on there?
I think that, no, I mean, he's being viciously attacked from all angles. That's the first part, right? By the media and by the academic establishment. People who are so-called experts, right? Quote unquote, who do not they hate it when he doesn't listen to them and he takes his own independent sort of approach to this problem, to this crisis, if you want to call it that. And they don't like that. So the other day, there were 20 of them from the academic establishment who took to one of the biggest newspapers in an op-ed, attacking him, calling his strategy life-threatening and extremely dangerous. And also one of them went on national television and against the Sweden's state epidemiologist and continued the attacks there. So, yeah, it's really vicious and nasty. But he has some support, I think. But whatever support he has globally and nationally, they're not they don't have the same permission to speak. They don't get the same space. They're not allowed to voice their opinion the same way. Through the outlets that exist, so they tend to go through alternative media sources, you know, to express their views, which are not maybe as well read or listened to by the general population. So it's harder to get heard and to get that message out.
So is the epidemiologist that's running this laissez-faire approach in Sweden, is he villainized by the public consensus? Are they whipping up a mob fervor against him, or is he pretty okay right now in terms of public crowd energy against him?
Yeah, last time I saw a poll on whether or not they're doing the right thing, I think the population was slightly slight majority were in favor, were supportive of him doing what he's doing, but it was split. It was something like 55-45 or something like that. It was a poll I saw. So it's split. But obviously they don't like it when when we have a control group, when we have a dissenter that is not conforming to what everybody else is doing, because what Sweden is doing really is a threat to other countries that if they pull this off and do well, I mean, how are other countries or other governors in the U.S. and Fossey and all of these small little Stalinists walking around, how are they going to excuse their approach when they put millions of people out of work, when they increased the call volume to the suicide hotlines by I don't know how many thousands of percent, and when they inflate the currency and destroy the economy, and how the negative consequence that follows what they're doing to stop this virus, when it didn't necessarily need it to be done that way. Mm-hmm. That I think is a huge threat, and they are afraid of that particularly because they are afraid to lose credibility.
Well, why do these state monopoly-funded little scientists always want to give prescriptions that increase the power of government? What's in it for them?
Oh yeah, no, I mean, are you talking about like the FDA or the CDC?
Or Fauci, all these guys. They never give you prescriptions for, hey, I think liberty would work here. That's always, how can we control people? Right. Why do scientists have such an appetite for statist coercion?
Well, I think many of them at least are partially or not fully funded by the state, by tax money. So what kind of grants do they have? Are they funded by the NIH grant, the National Institute of Health? I mean, many research projects are funded that way. So why they become inevitably mouthpieces of the regime this way? When they're funded by the state, how can they possibly remain objective in the approach they're always going to favor or try to manipulate and massage the data in a way that suits the narrative, that suits the state.
Yeah, and what's fascinating about all of this is that these bureaucracies are always doing things that help the crony racket corporations that make billions of dollars through these regulations and manipulations of the economy. And it's terrible because the media likes to demonize those guys too a little bit, but they always say, well, it's because you had too much freedom, little children. Little children, it's 9 o'clock bedtime. Go back to sleep. Don't walk your dog. And if I see you in a Whole Foods without a mask, we're going to villainize you on social media like they did to Candace Owens today. And this is the kind of where they had a police person talk to her saying, hey, you can't you can't be in here without a mask, And it's like, okay, I understand if that's Whole Foods policy, but the idea of employing the police to force people to wear masks is insane.
Yeah, no, they never let a crisis go to waste, right? It's always some excuse they have to go in and take over private property and start to dictating what other people do with their property. And this is just one other example of that we see them encroaching on these types of liberties too, instead of letting these companies and enterprises, make their own rules about how their business will be used and patronized and what kind of restrictions they want to put in place. They go in there and they implement sort of a one-size-fit-all cookie-cutter mold rule that applies to everybody no matter what. And if you dare to question it, you will be prosecuted for it. It's terrible, and I think it kind of illustrates how far they're willing to go, or far they're at least in what they're trying to go. I see some people starting to protest finally. It's about time. I would expect to see more of it if this continues like this. Hopefully we'll see a bigger crowd of uprising against these type of draconian measures that we are seeing being implemented right now across different states.
Yeah, and I just think, the difference, I think both the far left, the socialists, the Bernie Sanders crowd, both them and the populists and the liberty lovers, they all recognize that there's a rigged game for the big corporations in Wall Street. The difference is the far left thinks the answer to that rigged game is a little more coercion, or a lot more coercion. And those who love liberty say, no, actually, it's rigged because of the coercion. It's rigged because of the monopoly power of government in all of its forms.
Yeah.
And so that's the battle. We all know there's a rigged game for Wall Street and their cronies. The question is, what's the remedy? Is it freedom or is it more coercion?
Yeah, no, exactly. That's everybody agrees that this public-private partnership diffusion of corporate power and state power is really bad, and everybody can see that. The difference is that when the left looks at this, they see it as capitalism, evil capitalism, because we have these private enterprises going in but they're not private. If you really look at this, they're not private. The moment you get one dime, one penny from the taxpayer fund, you do not get to call yourself private anymore. That's no longer a private enterprise. That is now part of the state apparatus, in my opinion. Now they are part of this coercive machine that exists. If they get funded by the state, it's not a private company. I would like to see more private solutions to this, purely private solutions without the state. So I would say that it's the state, the government is the problem. The coercive mechanism of the government is the problem. It's not the private enterprise that is the problem.
Olof, thank you for the good news from Sweden. We hope we hear more of it. And thanks for coming on the program.
Thank you, David.
We'll continue live on A Neighbor's Choice. I've got something to say about the FDA in just a moment.
Do you use the expensive blue or yellow pills to charge your sex life? Are you thinking about it? What if we can promise you the same results for less than $3 a pill? If you're paying $20 a pill for the other pills, you're getting taken to the cleaners. Our pills deliver the exact same results for less than $3. You'll save more than $16 a pill for the same results. And right now, radio callers will get 44 blue or yellow pills for $120 with free discreet shipping. You can save more than $700 off pharmacy prices. Charge your sex life now and save a ton of money. Call now and get your 44 pills and save over $700 and qualify for free shipping. Stop overpaying and call right now.
800-809-4655. 800-809-4655. 800-809-4655. That's 800-809-4655.
And now, the Right Irrigation Specialist is reminding Americans to stand tall and show support to the brave and honorable men and women who serve our U.S. military. This salute is brought to you by the Right Irrigation Specialist. Veteran-owned and operated, they're serving the area with quality and pride. So don't delay. Call the pros today at 941-348-4209. That's 941-348-4209. That's the Right Irrigation Specialist. Proudly saluting our troops and veterans. They're professionals who care.
New guidelines show it's relatively safe for women with epilepsy to become pregnant, but caution must be taken. The guidelines from the American Academy of Neurology and American Epilepsy Society recommend that women with epilepsy avoid taking the seizure drug valproate during pregnancy, since the drug can cause birth defects. Overall, though, these guidelines should be very reassuring since they show epilepsy does not substantially increase a woman's risk of having a cesarean section or premature labor. For more information on these guidelines, visit thebrainmatters.org.
Right now, we're going through some challenging times. People are looking at different ways they can reinvent their business. I've been in the digital marketing industry for 20 years. If you think it's a good time to do an audit on your website or have a conversation about your digital marketing strategy, simply just email me, Jeff@chiefinternetmarketer.com. Jeff@chiefinternetmarketer.com. We can do this right from the safety of our own homes through a video conference. Again, just simply email me, Jeff@chiefinternetmarketer.com for your free consultation. Stay safe, be vigilant, we will persevere.
The following message is sponsored by the Florida Department of Elder Affairs, the Florida Association of Broadcasters, and this radio station.
Have you ever given your Social Security number to someone without knowing why they need it? Has your Medicare card been stolen? If you think you've been a victim of Medicare fraud, contact the SHINE Senior Medicare Patrol Program. They empower seniors to prevent Medicare fraud and can help if you've been a victim. To speak to a Shine counselor, call 1-800-963-5337 or go to floridashine.org.
Let food be thy medicine. That's what Hippocrates said, one of the great founders of Western medicine. But it's something that is yawned at by your so-called experts who have shaped and crafted so much of our out-of-control, amateurish response to this pandemic situation. You know, the Food and Drug Administration and many of the other organizations, USDA, which is the FDA is a branch of that, all these different groups that are tasked with trying to maintain health, they don't even begin to approach how human immunity works, how our immune system works. There's very, very little nutrition actually taught in medical school for doctors. And there's an emphasis on and a bias towards always finding a patentable drug, something you can patent that will be able to make up for the billion-dollar cost that the FDA puts on new drugs going through their process, and 10 to 15 years of taking time to do it. So if you take 10 to 15 years and $1 billion to get a new FDA drug approved, who does that help? Only the biggest of the biggest mega corporations can afford that. Only things that can be patented, that means a new man-made substance that you can patent so that you can reap the exclusive profits on it by charging a large, price to the, government-rigged hospital system and Medicare system and insurance system that ultimately is all based on fictions that the government has put, right? They tell you guys, look, we only exist to help the little guy. We just want to protect you from being sick. And I'm sure the lower level folks and most of the folks in these bureaucracies convince themselves that's all they do. But the reality is very obvious for anyone with, basically an elementary education can understand that when you make the cost to get FDA stamp of approval for a new drug, if you make it $1 billion, how can anybody who's got a new idea ever succeed? How can anything that's natural, which can't be patented, natural substances by law can't be patented, how could that ever get the kind of serious double-blind trials that are necessary to be able to get the rigorous science to find out what some of these natural supplements and natural minerals and vitamins can do that nature has all around us? Do you see how they preclude so much information from being figured out? Do you see how in a market where you actually have to have competition, in a market you would have free market type FDAs that would be competing to provide third-party assurance for consumers concerned about the efficacy and safety of drugs? And guess what? If these floating, independently funded, nonprofit, third-party evaluators of drug claims in a free market society, if they did a bad job like the FDA often does, they'd be put out of business. And if they were colluding with the people they were supposed to be regulating, then they would be guilty of potentially fraud. If they were deliberately pushing things as safe and then having a revolving door relationship with the customers that they were stamping that, approval for drugs, that would be potential fraud in a market situation. But the FDA, they're like a god, right? Because so many people in Washington and so many people in the heartland, unfortunately, they have this god-like complex about the state. They believe if they say it, I've got to conform because they're afraid. Fear not is what the angel said in the announcement for the birth of Christ. Fear not. You don't need to fear. Fear governs how everything else unfolds. If you come from a position of fear, It will destroy your relationships. It will destroy your health. It will destroy your career. It will destroy your culture. It will destroy your law. It will destroy your neighborhood. It will destroy everything. Fear is corrosive. And that's why the pronouncement with the birth of Jesus is fear not. And what's the opposite of fear not? The opposite of fear is love. The opposite of fear is peace. That's the foundation for flourishing. You've got to remember that we have the opportunities right now with the choices we make to reclaim liberty. Liberty is where we're going to have solutions right under our noses that won't require government to pay for them and won't require massive insurance policies to cover them. The only reason why we're having this debate between should big insurance companies tied to your employment be your provider for all your drugs, or should government do it completely? The only reason why we're having this debate is because we have precluded in our mind that fear is the only thing that will decide this issue. Who can gin up the most fear and create the most sympathy will win that political fake debate. But if we move our position away from fear and embrace confidence, embrace love, love as the answer. Love is at the root of all things. That's what Mr. Rogers said, Fred Rogers. Love or the lack of it. And I see a lot of the folks who want to tattletale other neighbors as being totally raised in a condition where they lacked love. And lack of love doesn't just mean the classical tyrannical parenting and upbringing. It also means the other, which is all too common, of not having enough boundaries, not having a balance between boundaries and liberty and proper imitation of good role models. We have a society today that's sinking in fear, but it doesn't need to sink in fear. It can raise up with love. Love is at the root of all things, and love is what will bind us together, not coercion. Jesus says God desires mercy, not sacrifice. And the state says, no, we'll go ahead and keep sacrificing. But they don't have the final solution. They don't have the final answer. Jesus' message, mercy, not sacrifice, is the message that will win in the end. But we're not on autopilot. We can't just sit back and just say, okay, well, I'll do nothing in the meantime. I'll sit complacent. We can't do that. We are to be the body that fulfills that message of mercy, that message of love of neighbor. We don't have to. We can wear a mask. It's okay to wear a mask if you want to wear a mask. But don't put your neighbor in a cage or threaten them if they don't, right? Use some common sense. Don't use sacrifice to get your way over people. People can solve problems a lot better without sacrifice, without the threat of violence that so many people cling to because they know not what they do. People are afraid of monopolies. They're afraid that big businesses are going to have a monopoly over our lives. But they don't realize that the biggest monopoly of all are these federal bureaucracies and these state bureaucracies. They have no accountability except for superficial, trivial little popularity contests that we call elections. That doesn't decide the fate of the bureaucracies. They stay. They keep their jobs. They have the best job security in the world, these bureaucracies. And they're good people in there, but they need to come out and do the real work in the voluntary world of markets, in the voluntary world of skin in the game, the voluntary world of bottom-up solutions, not top-down stupidity. So we're calling for a love revolution in this country each and every day, and a neighbor's choice will be at the forefront of this story as we continue. More to come in just a moment on Neighbor's Choice.
your local sports station.
Let's do this.
Turn it up. Sports Talk 1040, The Team. WHBO, Pinellas Park.
Have you ever wondered what it would be like to grow up without a mother or father? Or worse, having your father drop you off at a foster care facility and leave you there without coming back? Hi, my name is Cindy Tilley, and that's exactly what happened to me. I grew up in a foster care setting. I struggled every day to survive the difficult situations that I was not prepared for. And that is why I founded